Quick reminder to check out my Patreon if you want to support the channel and get access to extra content. I posted a video of all of Robert Woods' targets yesterday if you want to do your own research, which I always encourage you to do. And you also get access to my draft guide with scouting reports and film cut-ups on over 100 prospects. And version 2 of the draft guide will be coming out once free agency dies down. The Titans traded a 2023 6th-round pick for Robert Woods in what was essentially just a salary dump for the Rams, and this was a no-brainer move for Tennessee. Robert Woods is coming off of a torn ACL, but he's still a high-end wide receiver too, who is a great scheme fit for Tennessee's offense. For his career, Woods has played 42% of his snaps in the slot, so he has versatility to play inside or outside, and the Rams also lined him up in the backfield some and gave him a lot of design touches on jet sweeps and screens. After studying the Rams offense for this video, I was reminded of how much more creative Sean McVay is as a play designer than some other offensive coaches, but still, Robert Woods is a great athlete who's dynamic with the ball in his hands. He's not a physical runner like A.J. Brown. He isn't someone who's going to break a lot of tackles and power through the defense, but he can absolutely create after the catch. The most impressive aspect of Robert Woods' film to me was his route running. His footwork is so clean and there's no false steps or wasted motion in his routes. He also does a great job of varying his speed at different points in the route to mess with the defender's balance, and he has a great body control down the field, which he uses to attack the DB's leverage. He seems like the sort of receiver that will still be effective creating separation even as his athleticism starts to decline because he's so polished technically. And the same thing can be said about his ability to release against press coverage. Even as someone who's not a physically imposing player, his footwork at the line of scrimmage is so consistent, and he does a great job of using his hands and keeping his chest clean when the corner's trying to jam him. We can look at this play against Houston as an example. Woods is going to do a simple stretch release where he squares up, gives a subtle flash to the outside, and then explodes into an angle step and rips through the defender's inside shoulder. And then the ball gets deflected, but the release and the route were really good. The one negative on Robert Woods' tape is that he had kind of a lot of drops last year. He had a drop percentage of 8.2%, which was the highest he's had since 2014. I'm not worried about his hands, to be honest. He's never been a guy that struggled catching the ball, and a 9-game sample size where he had a few drops doesn't make me all that worried, but it's definitely worth noting. The other thing you've got to mention when you talk about Robert Woods is what he does as a run blocker. Teron Davenport mentioned that his 288 run blocking wins is the second most over the last 5 years, and his PFF run blocking grade of 84.9 was the highest among wide receivers, so he's definitely someone that brings it in the run game. And it's not just blocking cornerbacks on the outside. The Rams would line him up at H-back or even tight end and use him as a legitimate weapon as a blocker, so it's no surprise that Mike Vrabel and Jon Robinson were eager to add him to the team. Over the past 4 or 5 days, a certain segment of Titans fans have acted like Jon Robinson is waving the white flag and he's completely given up on the 2022 season because he didn't make any moves in the early part of free agency. And it's easy for me to just say, haha, you thought we wouldn't add a receiver, but now we did. But I would encourage the people who thought that to maybe reevaluate the purpose of free agency. The successful teams are not the ones that go on these big spending sprees to make up for drafting poorly. The successful teams are the ones that go bargain hunting and take advantage of teams like the Rams, who are at a different stage in the team building process and need to shed the contract of a player like Robert Woods. If we look at the free agent wide receiver signings so far, which of these would you prefer over Robert Woods for a 6th-round pick? Allen Robinson at 15 a year, maybe, but it's pretty close. I would say the Amari Cooper trade was good for Cleveland, but historically, big wide receiver free agent signings do not turn out that great. Let's look at the multi-year deals from last season for even more perspective. Kenny Golladay at $18 million per year, Corey Davis at $12.5, Curtis Samuel 3 years, $35. Nelson Agholor, $11 million. To me, this trade and the contract that you take on blows most of the big name free agent signings out of the water. So I would just leave you with that. If you were someone that thought Jon Robinson should be on the hot seat a few days ago, maybe be a little more patient next year. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to subscribe. Also follow me on Twitter and check out my Patreon if you want access to extra content.